We've had a ramble around the island, but we still haven't quite got to grips with the green zone as far as I can see. But we've got the map now, St Helier as was. Now this is an example of organic planning. Who needs an island plan when you can grow a place? Now presumably St Helier then, in some part, would have been a much more pleasant place than it is now. Derek, what do you think about that?
Picking up from where John was talking earlier about the first kind of control planning, kind of around about 1949, and the first modern town plan was the Holford Plan, and it was a brilliant document. I worked under Robert's scrutiny panel on town regeneration 4 or 5 years ago, and they asked me to go through all the town plans. And the best of the lot, in my opinion, was the first one, the Holford Plan. There, a chap called Barrett working on it, so everybody thought he was a Jerseyman, but he wasn't. It was called the Barrett Plan. And there are things in that plan now that still haven't been done, pedestrianisation, etc. And in my opinion, Robert's not going to agree, each plan, successive town plan, has kind of got worse, The best of the lot, the most surprising of the lot was 1988, when having done the plan, the week or month, I don't know if you were around, Michael, but the Harvard Depar Monster Scheme, great scheme, came out just before the plan was issued and kind of made a nonsense of it. Then there was one that Atkins did, I think, which was completely alien. It was all figures and numbers and zones. One good thing that came out of it were the EPIAs recognising identifiable areas in the town. We enjoyed that. That was good. Everybody understood it. The recent one, in my opinion, is too wordy, it's too bulky, it's what you can't do instead of what you should do, and there's no town plan in it. You want a town plan done by professionals with specific areas, ambitions, visions, etc. It doesn't have that. So, in my opinion, this town can be great if you do the Vienna run, and where you get high density, high quality housing for everybody. We can have that and should have that.
But it's inevitable.
Here.
If the planners get their hands on it, you're going to have zonal blight, aren't you? You're going to have this area's housing, this area's light industrial.
Yes.
You're going to have any little garages, workshops, so we're going to get rid of you.
Let the architects.
They finish up with what we've got in St Helier, a large extent, a sterile town, or else it's a ghetto because you're getting into harsh commercial areas like the docks, high security, nobody can go there, acres of open land which people can't use.
No, I think, Mike, I can't see the planners doing that. For as long as I've been working with planners, they've always spoken about the need to improve the quality of St Helier and to encourage mixed use, because mixed use gives activity throughout different times of the day, and we don't want to create sterile office areas which are harsh, horrible places at night, unfriendly to go and so on. I think that I certainly have concerns about the direction we're heading in, for example, the Waldorf area about that. Personally, I've got concerns about that. I want to see a mix of community use, where people live, where people do shopping, just go to the corner shop if you like, not major shopping, and use cafes and bars. I think that kind of mix, we've seen it work elsewhere very well. I think, earlier on we spoke about, the success of the island plan, the green zone. I think the area where we've not succeeded is St Helier. I think we have been policies in the early 90s. As Derek said, he spoke about environmental protection areas. This is where the state put its money where its mouth is. It actually put funding to improve environments of some of the streets of town. Dorset Street, I remember, absolutely brought up to standard. It did things about traffic management. Town is absolutely, we've allowed traffic to rule in town and create dreadfully unpleasant environments, and we've done very little to turn it back. And we've got all these now empty office areas in the north of town, and we've desperately got to find policies to get those areas back to life. And so I think there's a big challenge for the future, particularly as we know we've got this the additional population to house properly. Under the policies of the island plan, we know that priority need to go to the built up areas. We've got to make sure the standards are there, and we can absorb people and create decent environments to places to live. Somehow, that's been the challenge for as long as I can remember. No, I can't recall any politician arguing over that, but we've failed to do it. We've failed to find the means of doing it.
Why have we failed, Minister?
I don't think we have, and I think we kind of invent and reinvent kind of solutions that we've had before. I mean, anyone kind of taking more than a casual glance at the map behind us will notice that this was our first attempt at kind of town planning. But the thing that springs off the map for me is that look, there's a green zone policy there. You've got a green belt, which was used for orchards and growing food. In fact, if you look at the way urban settlements have grown up around the world, inevitably you do have a graduation from built-up areas to worked areas to growing food areas. And that really is, in essence, the idea behind the Greenbelt policies. It's not something that Jersey's thought up itself. I mean, you've only got to look at the UK planning system, Abercrombie and the big belt around London, to actually stop this kind of urban spread, which inevitably ends up as something that's pretty poor and destroys the very thing that you hold dear, which is open space.
Jersey in 1840s was a desperate area for disease, slums, so and so, and there were quite large areas, town, down as well as George, built by private developers. Now I don't know what extent of restraint it was on them, but they built a lot of housing accommodation and presumably other commercial accommodation.
I think they did, but I think in my mind, I think we have to kind of look and reanalyse and to actually kind of figure out whether or not the type of housing that was built kind of 100, 150 years ago is actually adequate for today's modern living.
This is the irony, because the most desirable houses in Jersey now, the older they are, the more desirable they are. If you've got a 17th century farmhouse, you're top of the hill as far as desirability is concerned.
Yeah, but they're only desirable if you can actually live in all of it. And this was the previous kind of planning minister's kind of dream for restoring kind of large Victorian and Georgian houses to single occupancy. Now we can't do that. Most of the larger, kind of more desirable places have been converted into flats by their owners.
Substandard flats.
Substandard flats, yeah,
which won't survive many more years. Once
survive.
the decent standards kick
Absolutely.
in.
Right. So we have to be properly looking at those problems again and decanting as far as possible, and providing more modern, up-to-date, suitable accommodation for people to have, for example, live-work units. I mean, with the computer revolution going at the pace it's going, the idea of actually having to have large offices in town that you kind of drive into from your luxury pad out of St Wands or St Mary's or whatever every day to work in an office area and then go back at night, the actual reasons for making those trips are starting to disappear. People are starting to do more and more things at home. A lot of the places are substandard because they're not capable of actually accommodating children with kind of active interests. The room sizes are generally too small. We still accept over here that a bedroom size that's of 90 square feet is actually a good sized bedroom for a 6'6" youngster who goes surfing.
But of course, the town grew because the people were basically working around the town.
Absolutely.
And it might be, what you say may well be true, if you're going to, as it is, most people working in the finance industry is in town, but they don't live in town, do they?
No,
they can
I think
to
for me,
my favourite little parish of
for me, the challenge is to come back and to redesign town and move towards the idealism that was present a number of years ago, and move towards the garden city movement, which gives people not only kind of better amenities for living in, but opportunities to work close to where they live, to grow their own food in places that don't require them to hop in a car and go out to an allotment.
So how do you get your clients there to want to build in St Helier?
But EPIA, I think we must stop and examine this. The whole area around kind of Brighton Road and Richburn, etc. That was identified as an IPA. It had a very good politician in charge, and that was Frank Walker, and we stopped the rat run and all the rest of it, and suddenly that dreadful working class kind of area suddenly became smart and fashionable. And that's a long, slow process, but in other places we seem to have lost the thread. That was a good time to be an architect, and that was kind of 80s. to be going into areas that were kind of run down and sorting them out and keeping the cars out, and that kind of worked. You know, why have we lost that? Why have we lost that?
Well, in Jersey terms and elsewhere, they don't talk about working class housing, they talk about affordable housing now. Of course, a lot of housing in those areas you're describing is...
It's 19th century working class housing.
It must be about encouraging investments, because Derek has described what definitely went on in that part of town, and we saw major investment in all of the houses being brought up to a good standard, and those, people are living them and enjoying that today without the rat run of cars. Now, if you go to London, you'll see that demonstrated. You go and see some of the areas very down at heel, and next door to it, you see an area coming up where investment is going on. People pick up those signals. They need to be encouraged that if other people are doing it, they're going to join in. And government's job, I think, in town planning and urban improvement is to encourage that. One of the elements I'd like to see, because it's a major opportunity, we've got, I don't know how many, I think it must be well over 100,000 square feet of offices empty. If we could get those developed into home or converting into homes, if we could do it in the way that met the kind of standards that the Minister spoke about and Derek was saying, with the amenities that people live, I think that would start to turn the thing into reverse, that we would get investment into those areas and that we would get people living there, because...
Want to live there.
Yes, that's the key. What you spoke about, well, why do people work in town and live at St Mary's? It's because they enjoy the quality of life at St Mary's. But a lot of young people actually like living in town already now, and they're looking for those type of homes now. But if we can encourage that and improve, that process can be accelerated, and that's the only way. Well, I think
people have got a choice. Obviously, it's very nice. A choice is a luxury, isn't it, in Jersey? But why shouldn't you build offices and houses in St Mary? I mean, I keep picking on poor St Mary, but why not? I still haven't grasped what's the essential benefit of having a green patch preserved up there. People in Bristol, there are lots of people travel from Bristol, commute on a daily basis to London, 120 miles each way. I mean,
But is that what we want?
This whole island is only 9 miles long.
But what you have to realise there is that if you're building sustainable communities, right, it doesn't just stop at you need a place to work at. You've got other facilities. You've got to have schools. If you look at St Martin's at the moment, St Martin's have actually just gone and invested in a sizable sum to have a new primary school. Now it's pretty clear that once the current catch of families that have been attracted into St Martin's to send their children to the new primary school have grown up, then what? You're going to have to kind of maybe continue to build or to graft on further housing estates of young families in order to keep the school going.
Excuse me, Robert.
When we were discussing is that the right place for another primary school of the size that we were talking about, a lot of politicians weren't completely interested in those issues.
Is live work possible in Jersey legally
I think
now?
live work is possible.
I mean, to live and work in the same building.
You need a big enough space to do it, and in a lot of instances, people don't have enough space.
It's what makes London work, doesn't it? You live and work in the same building, in the same. You work on the ground floor, you live above it, and that's how London ticks over.
The
rents of piano buildings at the moment are huge, sparkling, great, colourful ones, but half of them are social, affordable housing. The other half is for sale, and it works.
But of course,
London works.
But of course, London works with massive public transport infrastructure. We've got congestion charges. It's only the luxury people that drive around in cars in the middle of London. They've succeeded in public sector infrastructure, and I think while we've got a public transport strategy, in Jersey, I think we need to do much more to accelerate that and try and do things about reducing the incidence of damage of traffic on people's lives in town.
This is what the island plan for the next 10 years is built upon. We actually took a whole load of policy decisions to actually state that we wanted to minimise the traffic and the journeys that people made to go from their place of residence to their place of work. On the flip side, I mean, if you build communities over a certain size, you've got to have the schools, you've got to have the social facilities, you've got to have the pubs, you've got to have the shops, you've got to have the bigger shops, and then before you know it, you've got a copy of St Helier out at some areas.
Well,
now, if you're going to play that for all 12 parishes, is that what?
Well, we
the island
probably
wants to
we
do?
probably already got them. So, for example, I think that many people come and live in St Bernard's, my parish, because they know we've got nearly all the amenities you want there. You've got shops,
Swimming
you've got
pool.
doctors, you've got easy bus routes into town, you've got workplaces, you've got all the amenities. Now, that's because it's got a certain critical size and a certain quality. Now, I'm not saying you would make that the whole island, but I think in those places where you have got those communities, we've got to ensure those communities in the future are helped to be sustained in ageing population and so on. That does mean that things like sheltered housing and others in those areas. But the bigger picture, I think, has to deal with this issue. The priority is of helping the built-up area. And it's not just St Helier. It's partly in St Saviour, partly in St Clement. It's in the conurbation, if you like, of St Helier. And somehow or other, I would like to see a major focus of planning policy in the next decade. So all these things that you're describing, we can start to make some reality.
That's not in the current island plan, is it?
I-
Why isn't it in the current island plan?
It is.
I protested
Well,
very strongly when we've had the island plan produced. It's been based, bear in mind the island plan is based upon, half a dozen island plans that have gone before it, so it's accumulated knowledge, huge amount of knowledge, huge amount of research, loads of professional brains applied, loads of political brains, loads of public brains, everybody's invited. This has gone on for years and years and years.
No
And yet we're
answers.
still finding, we've just published this, we've had independent inspectors came in, and they've agreed to the island plan, basically, with a few amendments. We've got a huge discussion document now, 2 years down the line, to rewrite it, large parts of it.
but that doesn't say anything about the urban area, that document at all.
No, but it's addressing things like
Neither does the
things
island
like
plan, John.
housing, which
plan.
you can't say because because it's just accepting this ridiculous idea that you have to have these zones where housing shall not be, and this is going to go on forever and ever, won't it?
No, that was the whole emphasis, right? And it wasn't just the planning minister at the time's emphasis. It was all the states members who voted for it, bar one, right? Plus all the public's consultation and support in actually amending it and coming forward. If you read the first chapter under spatial planning policies, I mean, it's absolutely clear. It says that in the next 10 years, right, any extra redevelopment that's going to be required or further development that's going to be required for residential purposes will in the main take place in the built-up
I
areas.
understand that's what it says, and I'm saying it's wrong-headed. The Jersey cow says nothing, but it's very influential.
So let me turn it back to you. Where would you put your we've heard you suggest that maybe but if
Well,
it's for 10,000 people,
Gorey
probably
Village
several.
is a location which could be considerably expanded,
Yeah.
and nobody would
but
notice it had
you
changed.
go and speak to the Groovalet and
Well-
the new constable to be and whatever, and the residents who are living there, who've got a particular affection for their open greenfield sites, and they'll be the last ones saying, look, we're not going to accept any further redevelopment of our area in the public's name or in the island's name. We want the own special unique
They're very
place.
short-sighted because
We've
somewhere like Gorey has got its own little harbour. If the pier was
It could do.
renewed, they could have a rejuvenated, just like St Helier grew organically. Gorey can grow organically, but it has to have some reason to grow, and there has to be business with France, there has to be a tourism industry, there has to be encouragement for activities to take place there.
Hotels.
And there has to be housing.
Excuse me, 35 hotels between the east part of town and Gorey have vanished. 35. Would you believe it?
Yeah, well,
Can you think of any hotels between Gorey?
And the
They're
closing
gone.
of
They're
the
all
harbour,
gone. So where's the new ones?
The ferry service that used to run
Eco
from
Hotel.
Gorey to France, the local, there's a huge potential, it is potential between there and France to build up a business and with Guernsey.
So if
rejuvenate that
buildings-
whole side of the island.
I think you've got half an argument. I think that there is a potential for some of those buildings to be reused. But if we listen to the heritage lobby, right, and others who've got a fond appreciation of old buildings, which isn't necessarily kind of universal kind of taste or whatever, we're actually getting suggestions at the moment coming forward that any built-up areas should be mothballed and no further development should take place because you've got what you've got, and that's all you must have in the future. So we've got the usual contradiction in planning terms. First of all, is the island going to accept growth? That's an issue that hasn't been properly established
No.
on the back of an increasing economy or whatever. If you do accept growth, where's it going to go? Is it going to be distributed evenly across all of the island settlement areas, or will one or two bear the brunt? If indeed one or two bear the brunt, are you going to allow buildings to be knocked down and maybe go a little bit higher in order to accommodate the larger numbers? These are all the issues that have got to be balanced. And at the moment, in my mind, there's a broad spectrum as to which way the things could go on all of these issues.
I think my final word is, and I shall ask you for a final word, my final word is I think Jersey needs the 13th parish of the non-qualified. That's the parish we need, and we need to hear their voice, because it's never, ever expressed. Deputy?
Well, I don't think it as clear-cut as you've said. We've got a facility in the island plan for each of the communities, such as Gorey, St Bernard's, and all the other villages, to actually plan for their own futures for sustainable communities. And we have that. We've got a big picture plan for St Helier. Somehow or other, we've got to try and square that and make St Helier, I think, a successful place, carry on being a successful place, improve it, but we must keep the island, I think, as green as we can. I would really not want to see the island become spoiled, as in so many other places, and be overrun with overdevelopment and motorways and so on. I think we've got to have a planning structure that gives us the tools to...
Derek, do architects want to spoil the island?
No, I think it'll enhance the island, Michael, if the buildings are well designed, well considered, they can be modern. All the things that we talked about are possible, okay? I've seen them. The trouble with Jersey, they don't get out, they don't go out and see what's going on. What I've seen, and you've seen as well, Robert, is high density, successful town, city developments. Very clever, very interesting, very kind of enjoyable. And we could do that. So I think a little bit of everything of what we said can and should happen. But the island plan negativity, risk averse, don't do this. Policy is against it. It should be reversed. It should be positive. You can do this. Look at that. We can look at how they've done elsewhere. And I think the problem's not insoluble, it's not insuperable. The answer's out there. Just go and see it, research it, use it. Go back to the EPIAs, identify people with the immediate area, get leaders, champions, and there's a kind of strange sort of, I don't know what it is in Jersey, they call it community, but is it community, You're from the north, I'm from Wales, there's a sense of community that we all benefit from. Here, there's a kind of money thing, isn't it? You are out there in St Mary's with your big house because it represents a kind of class system. Well, it can be reorganised.
Minister,
It can be reorganised.
That you're saying us from the barbarians?
I think it is, yeah. But I think, we can have our cake and eat it, but what it requires is for all interested parties not to just peddle their own extreme points of view, but to actually move towards something that's politically and consensually in the middle.
Thank you all for your time.